everything in sports begins with your vision. How quickly you can see something, how quickly you can make a decision, act and react. That those are crucial to athletic performance.
Hi, welcome to the Halftime Snacks. My name is Ronena Inbinder. This show features the stories of talented people working in sports. Are you ready? Let's go! Today, joining us for the Halftime Snacks is an engineer, a sports enthusiast, and a thriving entrepreneur. Snacking with us directly from Pennsylvania is the CEO and co-founder of Reflexion, a technology company looking to create tools to train and monitor athletes' brains. There, they've developed The Edge, a technology that tracks, trains, and strengthens neuro-responses, resulting in both neurologic and physical performance enhancement. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Campagna.
Hey, Ronan, thanks for having me on the show.
Man, I always like to ask a super quick icebreaker at the beginning. So my icebreaker for you is, what's your favorite snack to have when you're watching a soccer match?
Ooh, favorite snack? I'm probably gonna have to go with like chicken and broccoli.
Chicken
I,
and
I,
broccoli. Okay.
yeah, as a snack. Protein, lean protein, and veggies all day.
Man, that I must say that was not the answer I was expecting, but that's a good one, man. I think I'm not gonna find someone that likes the same snack as you, but that's something that makes you unique. That's awesome, man. I want to start also our serious conversation, by talking about you founding Reflexion, kind of like the story. And I want to know, what does it take to become a founder of such technology company today, and why do people not need to pay for education to be able to create such company?
Sure. Jason Calacanis, a really famous angel investor, I think said it well. You have to be delusional with skill, and I think that's really what it comes down to. You have to have a vision that, if you look at the odds, won't succeed. You probably have a 1 in 10 chance of succeeding, but you have to really believe that you're going to execute on your vision, and you're going to be one of the few who's able to win. And I think that's really important. You have to believe strongly. You have to motivate an entire team to believe strongly in what you're building. But at the same time, you have to execute every single day. There's no room for error. Sure, you can mess up, you can fail along the way, you can stumble, but you have to continue to execute. Always be keeping your eyes on what it takes to get to the next milestone, to keep moving towards your goal, and continue to execute. It really comes down to just working really, really hard and smart.
And I guess that, I mean, because I remember in our first conversation, you told me the story that you dropped out of school because you started Reflexion and you realized that it's more practical than theoretical, and probably schools today don't really teach you most of the practical stuff, most of like the things that actually happens in life. And would you say that the value proposition of education in schools needs to change drastically for students in the future kind of get a better sense of what's happening in real life? Or do you think that that's just how it is and it's not never going to change? Do you have any take on that?
I think it depends. I think for many people, they probably don't need a 4-year degree. And here in the U.S., I think that there's a large perception that if you don't go to a 4-year university, you're a failure. And I think that secondary schools set you up for that. They basically teach you that if you don't make a $250,000 debt decision, or whatever the case might be, and paying for a higher, some sort of degree at a post-secondary school, that you're lesser than everyone else. I think that we all agree that that's really not the case, but that is the way that it's painted. I think that some people want to build an engine and will go read about it at a university, and some people want to build an engine and can pick up a wrench and figure out how to do it. And I think that there are multiple ways to be successful, and that universities should focus on providing value to the customer being the student, and less on publish or perish, where I think that sometimes incentives for faculty and staff at universities becomes misaligned with the goals of actually educating and producing high functioning students who go on to do great things in their field. So yeah, absolutely. I think that shift needs to happen if the education institutions that exist today want to survive and want to continue to produce high quality talent.
Totally, Matt. I agree with you, and I think we're in an exciting time because of how technology now is shifting, even where you can find information. Now, everything you can just learn online, and any skill, any class, any whatever you want to do, you can basically just go on YouTube, find the course, and so I think it's just gonna be very different in a few years when universities kind of catch up. And as I agree with you, there's not one path to success. There's many, and learning is very important to kind of develop. But there's many ways to learn. So that's kind of like the idea.
Absolutely.
And I've read a lot about Reflexion and the story, kind of like you guys from were some friends that realized there was a problem in the market, kind of related to concussions and brain injury. So I want you to tell us the story, quick, story of how you guys started Reflexion. What's the position in the fitness market, and who is the product that you're building for? Who are you trying to help? What's the pain that you're trying to solve?
Absolutely. I mean, the basic premise, and Reflection is a visual cognitive sports training company. Everything in sports begins with your vision. How quickly you can see something, how quickly you can make a decision, act and react. That those are crucial to athletic performance, whether you're a wide receiver in the end zone looking for the ball out of your peripheral, or you're a fighter trying to recognize your opponent's tendencies so that you can react accordingly, or you're a hitter staring down a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. Those are all visual cognitive processes that can be trained and assessed in order to make better athletes. And despite the fact that almost every other aspect of performance at this point has been made trackable, traceable, on your wrist or on your smartphone, visual cognitive hasn't been given that same attention. And what we've done at Reflection is, with a series of gamified drills that leverage our state-of-the-art based touchscreen light boards, we've been able to develop these modules where athletes can walk up to our touchscreens and basically play games that are training those visual cognitive skills, making them better athletes and keeping them safe. So we serve primarily gyms, performance training centers, high schools and universities, basically anywhere that has athletes that are trying to get to the next level or are already elite and are trying to get those extra few percentage points in order to make them come out on top. And we started the company actually when my co-founder, Matt Rhoda, so we're both named Matt, slid headfirst into the boards during an ice hockey game. And he was at breakaway speed, slid headfirst into the boards, was sidelined with a concussion. And his coach basically asked him, Matt, where are you? What year is it? And who's president? And that was their idea of taking care of his brain. And from that point, we became critically interested in visual cognitive performance and wellness for athletes and how to keep them safe, but also as performant as possible. And what we realized is, if you really want to keep athletes well, you have to help them win, because that's what they care about, their competitors. And that was really the impetus for why we started Reflection.
And in the fitness market, consumer products that we have out there, there's Peloton, there's Tonal, there's Mirror. I wonder how is Reflection positioned in terms of how professional or how amateur is the product for what type of athlete, and also if it's more towards the high end paying consumer, or is it more you guys thinking about something more affordable that's going to be distributed among all the schools in the US and then later in the world, or every sports center in the world? What are you guys thinking in terms of positioning yourself in the market?
Well, Rona, this is basically a technology adoption curve, right? I think especially in sports tech, you'll see that the elite athletes, those who are at the top, are always the early adopters of the technology. And eventually you want to be over here on the S curve, right? That's every school, that's every gym, every mainstream gym, every big box gym, however you want to say that. And previously, visual cognitive training was really just for the elite. And at Reflection, we're at that inflection point where we're starting to serve mainstream gyms, and we've really made visual cognitive training accessible so that anyone, even if they're not an expert in visual cognitive training, can do it. So you don't have to have a neurologist on your staff in order to do it anymore, or an optometrist. You can use our software and our hardware in order to become a better athlete through visual cognitive training. We can show you how you stack up against your peers. We can suggest training plans based off of your goals and previous performance. And really, our mission is to make visual cognitive training ubiquitous, so that eventually it is in everybody's hands and every athlete everywhere can use it. But right now, what we're doing is crossing that chasm from the sort of early majority, or right after the early adopters, to mass market.
The high end of the market usually gets the first, because I just think about, like, for example, the iPhone was owned at the beginning by only high end paying consumers, and then they figured out how to scale it and just put it in everyone else's pockets. So I guess it makes sense for Reflection to do that. And would you have like a timeline of knowing more or less when would you be expecting the chasm to be crossed, or do you have any idea of how you guys want to build up from where you are right now? Also, if you want to share where you are right now and what's coming up in probably the next 1 to 3 years, what are you guys thinking about?
Sure. I mean, our goals right now are really to continue to make visual cognitive training more accessible. So right now we have the entire infrastructure for showing you how you stand, how you've progressed over time as an athlete, your visual cognitive performance, that is, how you stack up against your peers. And where we're headed now is using the enormous amount of visual cognitive data that we've collected. We're running more than 10,000 visual cognitive training drills per month right now in our athlete user base, and taking that data together with demographic data in order to suggest tailored training plans to those athletes, thus saving coaches time, and giving them a leg up and automating part of the process for them, which ultimately means that it's easier and easier for athletes to use the product. And so our goal is to make those tailored training plans automated and extremely productive in their outcomes over the next, call it 1 to 3 years. And I think that's really what's going to allow us to reach athletes at every level. And so that's kind of our timeline. Although I think that admittedly, you can have a timeline for these sort of things, but really what's important from a business perspective is making sure that you are the leader and that you're keeping track of where the market's at in the desire for the product and the demand, and you're staging your product roadmap around the market, and maybe testing things that are a little bit too soon for the market, and taking note of that and just dialing in based off of what customers are saying and what you're seeing. But it's something that to some extent you can catalyze, but you can't necessarily change the natural pace of the adoption.
Yeah, it's kind of like the timing in the market, knowing if you're on the right time to present a specific product with specific needs from the customer to learn and adapt it in himself to do it. I guess that, if Spotify would have come out right after the iPhone came out, probably wasn't it would have not been a good timing because people weren't ready to understand how to use these kind of apps and stuff. So I guess what you say is totally right. And now that you mentioned also kind of like the challenges of timing, I wonder if there's any other kind of challenges that you think that you as a sports tech founder, startup founder face, and why. Let's say, for instance, if I want to start, a sports technology startup right now, what would you tell me to double check right before, I just face myself into a wall and make the same mistake that probably you did?
I think I have 2 points, and I think that neither of them are necessarily specific to sports tech, although maybe this first one is. In sports, there are a lot of ideal customers that have clout. They're big brands, and what we found early on is that many of them will want to use your product without paying you, whether that's a promise that may or may not be true that they'll promote the product, or that they're just so big that you'll be able to tell people that they're using it and that will be good enough. But at the end of the day, listen to the people who vote with their wallets. If somebody really wants a product and you're really solving something, they will pay you. And sure, if it's a big brand, that can be in kind. There are legitimate ways to structure those sorts of deals. But I think it's really important that you pay most attention to where you're getting real traction. And from a business perspective, that's where the revenue is coming from. So who's paying you? Because if they're paying you, you are solving a real problem for them. Nobody's going to give you $1 if you're not providing them value. So that's number one. Number two, also about customers, is that they will often tell you how your product should be, but they'll do it, which might sound great. You're like, well, of course, you'd want to listen to your customers. But many times they'll do it by telling you features, which are not the same as understanding what their problem is. If you listen to a customer's feature request every single time they say it, you'll have a ton of features that don't really fit together into any. You're solving a specific problem for one customer and a specific problem for another customer, but really what that leads to is a confusing product overall. And what's really important, and is a practice that we try to implement every day, is making sure that the people building the product, so this is your engineering team, it is actually speaking to customers and understanding the problems and really peeling back. If they tell you, we want XYZ feature, we want a baseball specific training, visual cognitive training set, understanding why do you want that? Why can't you use our drills and make a set yourself? Is it because you don't have time? You don't know which drills actually matter specifically for the group of athletes that you're trying to train? You need to understand the actual motives and then build the solution for those problems rather than just kind of blindly listening to everything that your customers say.
That's super interesting, Matt. I guess that it goes along the lines of probably the customer does not really have a clear idea of what they want. They may have an idea of what they wish they had, but that may not potentially solve the pain, as you mentioned, directly. So it's more about understanding the pain. I think that's fascinating. I think we could speak about that for so many hours, so many halftime snacks. Sadly, we don't have the time. But I want to ask you now about the business model of Reflection, and how do you guys make money, and if you see it pivoting in the next 10, 20 years with all the developments in technology, and why not?
Sure. So, I mean, our business model for both our B2B, that's the Edge, and B2C products, Flex, like most connected fitness products, are SaaS plus a box. So you buy either the Edge, which is our portable 2x6 foot touchscreen that engages athletes peripheral vision and functional movement, and is great for elite athletes. It's more premium, it's more engineered. Or Flex, our touchscreen TV based product that's great for in-home, where you're not trying to take up wall space and fit into the environment of an athlete's home. So you buy those products, and then you subscribe to an annual or monthly subscription. So that provides you access to all of our drills, all of our visual cognitive tracking, our leaderboards, tailored training recommendations, all from that subscription. And so that's how our business model works, similar to Peloton or Tonal or Mirror or any other connected fitness product, as I mentioned. Our target customers are gyms, performance training centers, teams, academic athletic organizations like secondary and post-secondary schools that have athletic teams. And those are our customers, the trainers, the strength coaches at those organizations are who rave about us. Those are the people that we serve specifically in those organizations. And then of course the end user athletes that are logging into our software, running the visual cognitive training drills and viewing their results. But they're sort of an end user, where the coaching or training staff is our customer.
I wonder if, and this could totally be your personal opinion, but would you say that technologies such as the one that Reflection is developing, and hardware and software that comes with it, and the things that you are doing, would you say that this technology will eventually replace coaches?
No, I don't think that it does. I think that what it does is it makes the coach's job easier. You still need a coach to push the athlete along, and I think that maybe it replaces an assistant coach in some position far down the road. But people are underrated by and large, and I think that what we do is we make a coach's job easier by automatically assigning visual cognitive training drills to them. The coach can review the results with them, with the analysis that we do, and know everything else about that athlete that helps drive decisions that we can't make, right? We don't know how the athlete slept. We don't know if the athlete's having a bad day. I'm sure at some point in the future, we might be able to aggregate some of that data, but the point here is that there are always external factors that are sort of soft, right? That the coach can understand the whole athlete and who they are, and help take them to the next level.
That gives me a lot of food for thought, because now that you mentioned also sleep, there's the company Whoop, the wearables company Whoop, that tracks everything related to stress, strain, and sleep and recovery. And one day maybe we'll see a collaboration between Whoop and Reflection, and out of a sudden, man, there's going to be a coach that is not going to be needed, because just these machines will be able to provide better insights and better, tailored recommendations to the athlete. And so I guess that it's an interesting time in terms of sports technology, and we'll see some cool things develop very, very soon. I'm sure that you're already, experiencing this kind of realization, and you are on the top of the industry in terms of how things are developing so fast. And I wonder, just really quick, if you have any insight of where the visual development training space is going in the next probably 5 to 10 years. Do you think that it will change drastically, or what's your take about it?
It's a good question. I think visual cognitive training is following a very similar trajectory to strength training. And if you think back a number of years, if you were, say, a soccer player, you wouldn't even think about strength training because it would make you slow. You wouldn't be agile. And now there's hardly somebody who even calls themselves fit that isn't doing strength training. And I think visual cognitive is following a very similar trajectory, and it starts at the top, like we talked about earlier, and then it trickles down to everybody else until it's ubiquitous. Tony Kanaan, an Indy 500 champion that we train, I think says it really well. He says that your eyes, they're not different than your biceps or your triceps or your legs. You have to train them just like every other muscle. Evan Holyfield, son of 4-time heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield, who we train, undefeated in his own career so far, calls us the future of training. And I really think that for us, it's making visual cognitive training ubiquitous. I think it's following a similar trajectory to strength training. And like we did with the Flex, our consumer product this year, we'll continue to develop downstream products that serve more and more of that sports and fitness market. And I think there's maybe an analogy here even to Tesla, where you start with, let's say, the Roadster, a very premium product designed for only those who can afford it or are really on the cutting edge of EV technology. Then you come out with the Model S that's a bit more affordable, that more people can obtain, and then the Model 3, which is widely available for many folks. And I'm sure there will be future models that get more and more affordable there. But what they're doing is they're serving a broader swath of the population with each product. And like I mentioned with Flex, our rollout of the consumer product this year, and more downstream products, potentially software only, other hardware platforms to come, then we'll be able to follow a similar trajectory in visual cognitive.
That sounds super fascinating, Matt. I'm looking forward for it. And since we're running out of time, I'm gonna ask you a last and quick question, and that is, what's the kindest thing that someone has ever done for you?
That is a very, very difficult question. I think it's really hard to pick out one, but I would say, especially as an entrepreneur, that it's a roller coaster, and you have the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think that having family and friends that are constantly there for you, whether it's grabbing coffee or a wellness check or just telling you what you mean to them, I think that is probably one of the things that is one of the things that I'm most grateful for in my life. And I think in aggregate, the support of family and friends is the kindest thing that others do for me.
That's awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing, and I want to thank you so much for coming to the Halftime Snacks, man. It has been an absolute pleasure to have discussions with you about reflection, visual cognitive training, and everything that you guys are doing in the fitness market. I think it's super exciting, and I can't wait to see what's gonna come out of you guys in a few years. Super looking forward for it. And yeah, man, thank you so much for joining us in this Halftime Snack. Before you leave, I want to thank you for listening. To hear these or any other Halftime Snack, check out the full archive on my website, which you can find on the show notes. See you next week!